Excel has some pretty strong auditing features. To demonstrate how these work, I'm going to go back to an earlier sheet called Statistical. So I'm just going to right-click the wee triangles here in the lower left, and from there I'll be able to choose, towards the top, a sheet called Statistical and OK. Using the sheet Statistical in an earlier chapter in an earlier video, we added statistical functions to the blue cells. If I'm sitting on a cell that contains a formula such as B11, I may want to graphically show those cells that precede this formula and give me this answer. To show the precedence, we basically go to the Formulas tab in the ribbon, and in the Formula Auditing group, we've got a Trace Precedence button. If I click the Trace Precedence, it graphically shows me that it's B3 to B9 that give me that answer. If I was to click on a different formula, such as the one in B14, I could trace a precedence for that formula. And it basically says that the cells A3 to A9 give me that answer. I can then choose to remove arrows. I can remove specific arrows or remove all arrows, and I'll remove all arrows. If I happen to be sitting on B17, which also contains a formula, you can trace precedence when you're sitting on a formula. And these are the cells that give me that answer. And again, I can remove arrows. If you're sitting on a cell that contains a value and not a formula, you can then trace dependence. And let me click on, say, this cell here, C3. If I trace dependence using this button here, it points to all the cells that depend on that number, i.e. they will be influenced if that number is changed or deleted. So it's telling me that C11, 12, 13, 15, 16 and B17 will be affected potentially if I change C3. And I can remove the arrows. Let's go to another sheet. I'm going to right-click the triangles in the lower left to see all my sheets, and I'm going to choose the sheet Second VLOOKUP and OK. I'm going to sit on a cell that contains a value, such as A8, and I'm going to trace who depends on that number. And it says that the description, the price, and the supplier depend on that number. And I can remove the arrows. Oops. If I'm sitting on a formula, such as large gearbox, and I trace what precedes that, it shows me with the use of two arrowheads that the A6 and this table here with a border around it both give me this description. And again, I can remove the arrows. If I sit on, say, F9 and I trace what depends on F9, I get a fan of formulas that are looking at that particular cell, and so is the price. And I can remove the arrows. If I sit on something like F5 and trace dependent and nothing does depend on it, I will get the following message. The trace dependence command found no formulas that refer to the active cell, so I could feel pretty secure deleting or changing that cell, knowing that nothing was going to be affected. A common question I get is, what if there's a link to another sheet? Let's, for example, go to the order form. Perhaps I'm curious about tracing the precedence here. So I click on a cell that contains a formula such as B6 and I trace the precedence. It says that it depends on A6, but it also has a little grid here and a black dashy line and a black arrow, which means there's also something else that also precedes this formula, but it's not in this sheet. If I double click the dashy black line, I'll get a go-to. Here is the path to where the dependence lies. If I click on that and go OK, it takes me to the table that precedes that result, and I can go back. So if you do have an external reference, it will appear as a black dashy line. You don't double click the little square at the end, you double click the dashy line and you'll be able to go to that particular area and then back again. And I can remove the arrows and I can go back to second VLOOKUP. So that can be quite handy. Now the other thing that's quite useful when auditing is working with comments. I might, for example, right-click the cell F5 and insert a comment because I think this is the easiest way to add a comment. When I insert a comment, my name immediately appears and I'll put a message. And I'll click away. As soon as I click away, a little red indicator appears in the top right corner of that cell. If you ever see a little red indicator, it means that somebody's left you a comment. And when you rest on that cell, not necessarily clicking, you'll immediately see the comment. It'll pop up, and as soon as you move away, it'll disappear. If you want the comment to stay up, right-click that cell and choose Show Hide Comments. And that comment will now stay up even when you click away. You can then click the edge of that comment and resize it with the handles. And you can also move it with this four-headed mouse pointer. So the four-headed mouse pointer moves and the two-headed mouse pointer resizes. And I can even get rid of my name if I wish. And click away. So comments can be asked with the right click to hide and only appear when rest on, or you can right click and ask it to show. The fact that it showed your name is because of a setting under File. So I'm going to go to File and I'm going to go to Options, and this is where it gets my name from. So you can set up your name in there just by typing. You can right click a cell and you can easily edit a comment if you need to make a change. You can easily print comments. If I decided to go to File and to go to Print, I can see that the comments aren't showing. But if I go to Page Setup and choose Landscape on my way through to Sheet, when I go to Sheet, I'll go to Comments and I'll say that I want to print them not at the end of the sheet, but as displayed on the sheet. I'll then go OK and it'll go Landscape and it'll show me the comments as they're displayed on the sheet. So I would have to show the comments I wanted printed and hide the comments I didn't want printed, and then it would print. And I can go back again. If I wish to delete a comment, I simply right click and I can easily delete a comment as well as hide it as well as edit it. And I think the right click method is best when working with comments.